Stardom 101. Stardom 101. Stardom 101.
Stardom 101.
It's the Stardom 101 Magazine Podcast. Shining light on today's tastemakers
and innovators.
Kicking it with your host, Christopher Boykin.
It's the Stardom 101 Magazine Podcast.
It's Stardom 101 Magazine Podcast here back on iHeartRadio. Thank you guys once again for tapping into our platform. You guys have suggested to say, hey, Chris, I appreciate what you're doing. And we want to hear more talented individuals. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, when I say talent is in the building, talent is in the building. Trisha is here. Trisha Alicia is here once again. How are you doing, Queen? How's the day going for you so far?
Hello. I'm doing wonderful.
Yes.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Folks have wanted to know a lot about you. I submitted your information out there. They got plenty of questions, so we're gonna have that. That's a good thing. One of the most requested questions was, how did you get in the industry? What was your background story, your why? I know a lot of people are talented. What drives us to what we do is always different. So for you, what was it about you and the music that resonated with you and makes you want to pursue it professionally?
Yeah, I have like kind of a kaleidoscopic type story because I didn't start out with the hopes of pursuing music. I know some people are like, man, I was 3 years old and I wanted to be a musician or I wanted to be a singer. And that was not my story. So shout out to whoever is like me on their journey where you started off one way and then you pivoted to in another direction. Yeah. So I actually started off in engineering and
cool.
I got a degree and I moved down to Nashville, which is known as Music City for anybody who doesn't know that. It's known as Music City. And I didn't move down here for music. Everybody thinks I moved down here for music. And I'm like, no, I actually was just trying to get a job. I had a job. I was like, do I want to stay broke in New York or do I want to get this job? And I was like, yep, let's go get this job, moving down south. And that was kind of the end of it for a little bit. But I started meeting so many different people who did different things, whether it was in music proper or music adjacent, meaning like, oh, I play with the band sometimes, or I fill in for a girl who sings BGVs. And I started to see all these different pathways of how music was happening for what I consider to be quote unquote regular people. When I thought about music, I was like, oh, you're in the studio all the time, or you're networking, you're going here, you're going there, you're doing this. And that is a part of it. But there are a lot of people who are making respectable incomes, doing a lot of things that maybe the average person may not consider a part of the music industry. So after having that exposure, I was like, man, I had already been writing and stuff in New York, but I hadn't really found a place in Nashville or found like a crew or anything like that. So as I started to meet more people, I was like, well, maybe this is something that I can do, in my free time. And slowly but surely, it was no longer a hobby. It was like, no, let's press the gas on this.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, did you always do different types of music when you first started? Like, was it R&B? Then you went to gospel? Like, did you already know your sound kind of thing? Because that's always an experience to kind of get to know you as an artist first before you put yourself out there to the world. It
is. I had this very good mentor, and he was like, a lot of times people have a lane that they feel like they're in. And honestly, the more you do, the more that you can do. And I always approached it from that standpoint. Like, I don't want to limit myself into one arena or area. Like, if you know that that's what you can do, then God bless you. But for me, it was more or less like, when I was writing pop and R&B for different artists back in New York who were trying to do whatever, where they're trying to have like, a little intro song, or they're trying to understand their own sound. And so then when I came to Nashville, it started off to be more of the same. And as I started to explore the scene, I did more spoken word, and that introduced me to different types of musical influences, because when people are doing music behind spoken word, the words are the feature. So it's not quite the same as, I have a verse and a hook. It was always a multi-genre approach, and I think it kept my mind open to different sounds and open to the way that people connect with music and the way that they express, like whether it's their emotions or their connection to God or their spirituality, their faith, what have you. It helped me just really see that for what it was.
Nice. And speaking of that, I know your songwriting ability. Do you foresee yourself doing more songwriting or continue to do, though? You probably still do it now for other people of a genres, anything like that? Is that a lane that's really big on you, like the pen and what it can do for you and the opportunities that could create as well?
Yes. Honestly, when I first started music, I always felt like I wanted to just write.
Wow.
And
okay.
yeah, it was kind of interesting. And I don't know if I felt like I had to make that distinction back then, but I always felt like, oh, I just want to write. I just want to write. I just want to write. And after a while, it was like, oh, I have a little bit to say too. So let me slide to the left behind
there you
this microphone.
There you go. That's what's up. That's what's up. And you got a brand new single. The single is out. Of course, Promises, the remix. Yes, let's talk about that. First of all, how did you link up with Canton? I mean, as Canton, everybody knows Canton Jones, of course.
Yeah.
Let's plug him. And how did you guys link up? What's the backstory of that?
So it's actually like how most things are. It's nothing necessarily spectacular. It wasn't like I was walking down the street and I was like, oh, let me spit these bars for you. Yeah, I wish it was. I wish I had like some story where he was like, oh, I'm gonna give you a hard word and boom, go. And then I had a flow. Nah,
yeah, it wasn't like that. It ain't like that.
It wasn't. It was cool though. It was still cool. I was working with the project manager for my project, and a project manager, for anybody who doesn't know, it's very much like it is in corporate America. If you know what a project manager is in corporate America, same thing for music, except the product is the music, the project is the music, and the project manager helps bring resources together and hopefully keep the project on time so that you meet your release deliverable, et cetera, et cetera. So my project manager had a couple of different ways where he would help me, I don't want to say see the bigger picture, but vocalize that bigger picture in a concise manner.
Nice. Okay.
And yeah, one time he was like, well, who else, who could you imagine featuring on this song? And at that point I had, I think I had just like the verses and the hook done and like a rough demo. So it wasn't anywhere in its final shape.
Okay.
And so I shot out some names and Canton was the first name on the list. And he was like, okay. And like any good, a person who's able to draw out like people's dreams or their imaginations, they ask very good questions.
Oh, yes. So
he didn't take the first answer. He was like, okay, well, what else do you have on this track? What else do you have on this track? And then he spun the block and was like, all right, so you have Canton and you have this person and that person. He's like, he's trying to get the 3-dimension of it. Would you want me ladies on here, on this track or that track, just to kind of make sure that what I was sharing was kind of what was on my heart. And like 2 weeks later, he was like, hey, so are you cool with like other people listening to the rough demo?
Okay.
And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. I thought he meant like, people who were that we already knew that.
Oh, okay. Like, okay, you got you. Internal people.
Knew I was like knew I was recording but hadn't really heard it. And so I was like, that's fine. And then a couple of days later, he was like, hey, Canton said he's gonna do the song. And I was like, wait a minute.
What?
Wait a minute.
What? Wow.
I was like, listen, I think had I known that he was gonna,
you would have did something different.
Yes, would have said something different. Canton had been to radio stations in Nashville, so it was like you meet people in passing. It was like, hey, how you doing?
Okay.
How's it going?
Okay.
Great to see you.
Yeah.
Type situation, but it wasn't like, oh, I have this project and I want you to be on it. I would not have done any of that. So that's how it came together.
Wow.
I had exposure to him before, so he was somewhat familiar, but I was still, a newer artist, so it wasn't as though he just, oh yeah, Trisha. It wasn't any of that, but it worked out, and I'm glad that he enjoyed the song enough to bless it, which he did. He always comes with the heat, so I was super excited. Super excited.
That's what's up. And the inspiration behind the new single, can you let the fans know a little bit what it's about, what they're about to embark on when they press play? Like, what's the single about?
Yeah, the single is really just about reminding you that you have a light and you should let it shine. And like, no matter what the obstacles are, like you're connected to a creator that ultimately has your back and, you're going to move in the right direction of your purpose.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. Do you foresee yourself doing a visual for the single as well? Are you big on like the visual component to go along with the single, or you just like the single to kind of circulate and do what it does on its own generically?
Honestly, you have to have visuals in today's society. I don't know. I mean, unless you just have a super, I guess, cult-like following is how they call it.
Sure.
Unless you have that type of following, I think you always have to have a visual, given the age that we live in. So there is something coming for it. There is something coming. It'll probably more so circulate on socials than a huge, like super push sponsored ads across Google and all that stuff.
I see. That's what's up. That's what's up. Festival season is coming up. Shows, tours, any live performances you foresee? I can kind of see you on the big stage. Are you big on an intentional this year, trying to get out there, doing some more performances and knocking down some stages?
Absolutely. I love doing festivals.
Nice.
There was one summer where I think I did like 3 or 4 of them. So it'll be good to get back to do a lot more of those. I've been doing a lot of stuff here in Nashville and just working the geographical area, the drivable geographical areas. So that's been cool. But I am very excited to get back on some festival stages. The best part for me is when I'm in a new area and I run into either friends or family.
Yeah.
And one time this girl ran up on me and she was like, hey, and she told me what her username was on Instagram. And I'm like, oh, I'm so happy you said your username and not your real name, because girl, I wouldn't have known it. I would not have known it. So that stuff like that is gold. I love that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And your song just made #1, right? You got some big news you recently celebrated. Yes, I see. That's God, we got to talk about that, right? So let's talk about that #1, that plateau. That's huge. That's monumental. What does that mean to you?
So, as an independent artist, one of the things that people can get caught up in is like the hype of the number. Okay. Oh, it has to be this on the Billboard charts, or it has to be this on a chart. And I think sometimes you can get, it's like even with like weight, right? People get caught up in the number and then they don't realize like all the other good stuff that's happening because they're caught up in the number. And so I never was really just focused on the number. But it is something that feels great when the number happens. I'm not going to lie to you.
Of course.
Not going to lie to you. So I feel like it's been like everybody's been showing a lot of love.
Yeah.
When the announcement rolled out, I was super surprised when it dropped, when I saw the tag. I was like, wait, what? This is amazing.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Like you never really know when you set out to do something. Like you may when you are the initiator, when you are the creator, you always see the big picture and like, oh man, this is like the best thing ever because it's yours. But then when it goes out into the world and the world has like the same reaction to it, you're like, yo, all right, we're vibing.
Yes, sir. Best feeling in the world. Best feeling in the world. And your relationship with God is very critical as well, too, of course. How intentional are you about not only just making your music, but making your words and your message and what you stand for? Also, make sure that's being displayed in who you are, and of course, the message of what you do in your brand, so your listeners can understand that your relationship with God is very critical as well.
So it's interesting. Where I grew up, it wasn't like how it is in Nashville, because I grew up in New York, so it wasn't really a Bible Beltway type situation. Like down here in Nashville, there's a whole bunch of Christians, and there are a lot of people who I would say are Christian adjacent, meaning they're like, oh, I'm like culturally Christian, but not necessarily like they don't necessarily have a personal relationship.
I see.
And because of where I grew up, I felt more of a need to have whatever I do line up with what I say I am. So if I say I'm a good person,
absolutely,
then I should have good activities that I partake in. I shouldn't be like, I'm a good person, and then you see me like, I don't know,
out of bounds. Exactly. Yeah, of course.
Exactly. Cussing them out or something
character.
Like that. Yeah. So for me, I just try to make sure that I'm 100 and above board, like all the time. And it's not like being the moral police or like the moral majority or anything like that, because I think at the end of the day, people people read you,
of
the
course,
individual, more
absolutely,
than they're going to read whatever thing you say you stand for or anything like that. So I just try to make sure I treat people well. And when they ask me questions like about my faith or like, hey, how is it that you handle this situation or handle that situation?
That's good.
That's when, we can have a real conversation about it, as opposed to just necessarily having it on Front Street. Like, don't you know the Bible says about?
Yeah. I'm going to give you book and verse right now. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do book and verse. I'm a real human being here.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of how I live and operate. And then the final thing I'll say about it is, being that I was an engineer, I get a lot of like intellectual people who are like, oh, science is this, or
I see.
I believe this about like the earth, and like you being a Christian, y'all believe blah blah blah, and so it kind of becomes this real interesting conversation. And it's cool because you can give them a different look to where they feel like, oh, all Christians are this, and then they meet you or they meet me, and it's like, oh, okay, I didn't know that this was also how some people who are Christians also believe. Like, okay, you might be able to, you might be changing my mind a little bit about what I thought about you guys. It's like, okay, all right.
I got an opportunity. I might have the door might literally open here. Change the soul.
Exactly. A little bit of a crack of a window, but I'm going to go ahead and to use a line in the song, let my light shine.
That's what's up. Are you still thinking about pursuing maybe some voiceover work down the line? Probably not right now, of course, but I can hear it. I think you got it. I think you got what it takes. Are you still? Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I did a couple of things here and there. So it'll be good if things happen. I'm not gonna be mad about it at all in the slightest.
Sure. Fantastic. What's the platforms people, what's the best platform people can go stream and support this single out? Literally keep it in rotation, keep it at number one. Once again, congratulations on that. But what's the best thing for the listeners to do to keep this momentum going and keep this single in circulation?
So the single is available on all digital platforms. That's Spotify, Pandora, I guess, wherever you guys stream music. Tidal obviously is another major one, but it's available on all digital platforms. And if you go search it, it's Promises with Trisha, Trisha, Alicia, Alicia, and it's featuring Canton Jones. So if you go Promises Remix, Trisha and Canton, you'll find it. Obviously, requesting it is huge. So if you listen to any internet radio stations and they're not playing it, feel free to request it. We can send it anywhere. I mean, and that's literally anywhere. We have stations in the UK that have requested the music. We have stations in Canada that have requested the music. Like, we will definitely send it if they're like, hey, we need to get our hands on it and we can't find it.
Nice. Perfect. Trisha, we thank you so much for tapping in and stopping at our show. The fans been wanting you. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys so much.
Absolutely. Stardom Magazine, iHeartRadio. Y'all heard it. Once again, keep that single in circulation. All of her social media platforms and links actually will be in the show notes of this episode. So if you want to follow us, support her, please do. Request the single. The music is coming. Other things is coming down the line. She's doing an amazing thing. Talented individual. Trisha Alicia in the building. Once again, Stardom Magazine, iHeartRadio. Thank you guys. Until next time, peace.
Are you on the rise to stardom? Well, get featured in the next issue of Stardom101 Magazine and promote your business or products today. Text MAG to 804-550-8647 or visit stardom101mag.net.
You're listening to the Stardom101 Magazine Podcast with Christopher Boykin. Be sure to subscribe and download this episode, and continue to listen to Stardom on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts.